If you're a fan of AD&D but have always hated those cliché kill-the-foozle plots most adventure games adhere to so religiously, SSI has a game for you. Dungeon Hack has no plot problems. You simply enter a dungeon and attempt to survive and thrive as you bash your way through as many levels as you think you can take. This adds up to more action than most adventure games on the market, all without having to talk to a single town person. Here's the plot of Dungeon Hack in all its intricate glory. You are generic adventurer. A powerful mage contracts you to rescue some long-lost orb from the nasty bowels of a dangerous, non-quaint dungeon. Your reward will be whatever you can loot from the inhabitants and carry out, as long as she gets the orb. While you attempt to haggle some upfront cash out of her, she teleports you directly onto the portcullis. So much for the small talk. Now, go kill things. Like most adventure games, Dungeon Hack begins with character selection. You may choose from a selection of ready-made adventurers or create your own character to guide through the dungeon. Although most people will prefer to build their own character, the pre-roll characters that come with Dungeon Hack at least deserve to be looked at. These characters, who all come with their own backgrounds, are a well-balanced bunch, representing each character class quite well. If you're looking for a solid, realistic character, you could do much worse in other games. Now, if you want to create your own adventure persona, or if you just plain want to stack the odds in your favor, this is the screen to go to. The computer will create some random stats whenever you click on the reroll button, which you can do repeatedly until your eyeballs ache. A generous, although definitely ludicrous touch is the ability to edit the stats once they've been rolled. The potential for abuse of this privilege, and you're stupid if you don't, should be obvious when these steroid-ridden statistics are considered. The customization screen is by far the most important feature of Dungeon Hack and what makes it unique among adventure games. Here you get to set the specifications for the dungeon the program will create for you. As you can see, the list of options is extensive and gives you a great deal of control over the random dungeons. The dungeon can be as easy or brutal as you want it, and there are so many ways to change the difficulty. Probably the most masochistic of all options is the Real Death character switch. When enabled, this little gem erases your character's saved game file should you be overcome in the dungeon. That's a concept sure to jangle some jaded adventure freaks to the cores of their spleens. Fans of SSI's Eye of the Beholder 3 should feel right at home in these dungeons. The main exploring and hacking screen is handsomely drawn and the interface is slick. The objects you wish to equip are placed in their appropriate places on the character outline. The inventory rack flips left and right to expose its three sides, and inventory management hassles are seldom experienced. The two buttons to the right of the character icon show the in-hand items that are ready for immediate use. Although players can use the arrow buttons on the right side of the screen to move around, I prefer to move around by working the keyboard's number pad with my left hand, while freeing up the mouse pointer to open doors, attack monsters, and perform other important tasks. If nothing else, one of the first things you'll learn to do if you play for more than, 10 seconds is learn how to fight monsters. This cockatrice may look menacing, but it's nothing compared to the deeper denizens of this game. Fighting is accomplished by clicking on a weapon, scroll, spellbook, or other implement of destruction readied in one of the in-hand boxes. Animation of the monsters and your forces of doom is less than spectacular, but it gets the point across, and quick. The fighting system is simple, which keeps Hack from succumbing to the unending combat drudgery that keeps me away from other games of this type. In Hack, the monsters aren't just different-looking pictures to take a slug at. Each monster is a faithful reproduction of its paper and pencil self. Unfortunately for the gamer, this means that they have special abilities and attacks, all the better to mash you into paladin putty with, my dear. Take this cute little ghoul, for instance. Whenever he hits you, he has a chance of holding you, making you unable to counterattack. That's inconvenient. When this happens, it's best to yell, "Run away!" and use your non-paralyzed legs to carry you far away until the effect wears off. Naturally, in your sojourn through your dungeon, you will find many doors, and many of them locked. Keys are scattered around but won't necessarily be on the same level as their intended door if you selected multi-level puzzles at the customization screen. There are, however, many other means than keys to open doors. Most gems that you find are in fact pieces of ornaments that are actually latching mechanisms. Thieves can, of course, attempt to pick the locks. If you're lucky, you may even find the occasional magical item to crack even the most stubborn doors. On a graphically pleasing note, the doors and the other parts of the dungeon as well change in appearance with each descent to a lower level, which keeps the view from getting boring. The monsters in the first 4 levels are pretty tame, run-of-the-mill evil things to run through with your sword, which is a good thing considering you're no Terminator yourself at this point. Even on an early level, it's not uncommon for the computer to stick a tougher-than-average monster like this sill between you and the stairs to the next level, just so you don't go into foozle withdrawal. This is a good indication of how intelligently the computer designs the random dungeons. You won't find impossibilities like rooms with no doors or hallways that stop abruptly at the edge of the playing grid here. Each dungeon level is laid out as if a real person drew them on graph paper. The dungeon graphics are attractive and well drawn and make a visual pleasure out of what could be a real eyesore. Each level has its own look. Some are dingy, slimy dungeons of a traditional type where the torture never stops, while others are so opulent they seem more like monster-infested palaces. But don't stare at the walls just because they're pretty. Taking in your surroundings can be profitable too. Occasionally, the observant adventurer will discover a niche in the wall. These niches have all kinds of small goodies stashed away in them. Coins, scrolls, magical rings. Just don't expect to find a suit of plate mail in one of these little cubby holes.
That would be silly.
I told you the monsters got rougher. For those who scoff at the dangers of the deep dungeon, prepare to meet death at the hand of one of the most feared creatures of the Forgotten Realms universe. No, not a Netfunicello, but the Death Knight. These undead beasties start popping up around the 8th level and won't do anything for your peace of mind. In addition to being menacing swordsmith, these creatures also have a fireball attack which can ruin your day in a big hurry. Although a Death Knight can only shoot 1 fireball per day, this attack cost me well over 60 hit points more than once. But then again, I guess that's what they make Rings of Fire Resistance for. This could be you in a few years. Although Dungeon Hack's graphics are only in 320 by 200 mode, they are colorful and well detailed. Adornments of the pretty and not so pretty varieties grace the walls of these dungeons. Aqueducts, rat holes, tapestries, instruments of torture, and of course, dead guys behind grapes will keep your dungeon crawl a graphically rich experience. Things may not move around too much in Dungeon Hack, but at least they look real good standing still. There are many things I hate about adventure games, and Dungeon Hack avoids them all very well. It's also the only computer game on the market you'll never need a cluebook for. I was pleasantly surprised at how fast the computer created the random dungeons. It's simple, but what it does well. If you like exploring dangerous caverns, battling scary monsters, and elevating a character from a weakling into a powerhouse, Dungeon Hack won't fail to please.